you learn how to compartmentalize that temporarily before you go on with your session, and that helps to keep it clean as well. So
I thought it was interesting in the book when you shared, and I may not be saying this properly, but how right before you do remote viewing, you're supposed to name all the things that like are on your mind, your biases, or what the things that are going on that are occupying you, issues you have, so that you kind of clear it. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, and those are inclemencies. Like, oh no, I'm going through a divorce. I still have to do this remote viewing session. Okay, over on the side you write, going through a divorce. You acknowledge that's a problem, and basically you're making a deal with your subconscious. Let me let go of this problem for now, and I promise I'll start worrying about it again once the session is over. Right? Going through divorce, I have a cold, I have a broken leg, my cat got run over, the IRS is auditing me. My mother-in-law is coming to visit. I don't know, whatever might be issues. You just need to set those aside temporarily while you're doing the session. But in order to do that, you have to promise your subconscious that you will take them seriously once you're done. And then surprisingly, actually allows you to do that. It works very well. In fact, it's very useful in other parts of life too. If you have something you really need to concentrate on, but you're being eaten, if something's eating at you, it's really bugging you, identify what that thing is that's eating you, set it aside with the agreement that you'll start worrying about it again once you're done with the thing you have to concentrate on, and then you can concentrate, and then you go back to whatever it is that's you have to worry about. So it works quite amazingly well once you learn how to do it.
Because the questions that we ask are going to pull for the range or the depth in which they're asked. Could it also be said that the whole area of asking questions is also an aspect of having successful and effective remote viewing outcomes, or no?
Well, okay, so I'm going to equate asking questions with the tasking that a remote viewer might get. Okay, so the question might be, where is Osama bin Laden? Okay, that may be what you want to find out. Now, the viewer is not going to get that. The viewer is just going to get a number which stands for that. The viewer cannot know that it's Osama bin Laden that you want to know about.
Okay.
But the person who writes the tasking has to be very explicit and very careful to specify exactly what they're looking for. You would actually not ask, where is Osama bin Laden? You would say, describe the present location of Osama bin Laden, especially important landmarks, or something like that, right? You want to be very specific in time and space to whatever degree you can. Now, on something you don't know where it is, you obviously can't specify the space. But you can say, describe the present location of Osama bin Laden. That is a good specific way of saying it, and then the viewer will hopefully describe it. If you want the remote viewer to, in a practice session, say the target is the Eiffel Tower, then you're going to want to say something like, describe the Eiffel Tower present time. Now, when you get into more things, obviously the tasking gets more complicated, and you have to be, again, very careful about how you state it, because interestingly enough, the subconscious is quite literal in its interpretation of things. And if you give it an ambiguous tasking, it will default to the one that makes the most sense to it, even if that may not be what you had in mind. I really need to come up with a good example of this, but if you phrase a tasking that could have two different meanings, you use a word that might be a bit ambiguous, then you might end up getting an exact, literal, actual, really good remote viewing session that gives you the wrong information about the wrong target because you weren't specific in your tasking.
And this is what has also been said to be true about goals and accomplishment.
Yes.
That the specificity in which and the clarity in which the goal or the accomplishment is articulated provides variation and distillation, almost like its own field in which it can show up, so to speak. But that's a whole other show.
I think a lot of times people build ambiguity into their goals because they either consciously or subconsciously want to give themselves an out.
That's very perceptive. That's very, very, very perceptive. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have been dialoguing with Paul Smith, the author of Reading the Enemy's Mind, and the president of the International Remote Viewing Association. He can be reached at www.rviewer.com. We'd like to invite you back, Paul, with a couple of other guests as well to go deeper into the subject. We thank you for your time today, and we hope that the audience has a very clear frame of reference on the remote viewing program that's available in the world today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been great.